She had just won the biggest deal of her life. In less than 60 seconds, she would lose everything else. Before you continue reading, drop a comment and tell me where in the world you're watching from. This story is reaching people everywhere, and we want to hear from you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now, because what happens next will shake you to your core. Amora Mitchell sat in her car for a moment before stepping out, pressing her hand flat against the steering wheel of her $120,000 pearl white luxury coupe. She exhaled slowly, letting the victory sink into her bones. 21 years old. No investor. No safety net. Just a mother's lessons, her own 2 hands, and 3 years of grinding through doubt and dismissal to build something real. Her luxury car authentication and resale consulting business had just landed its biggest corporate client, a deal that would finally let her sign the lease on her first official office space. She smiled. Her mother would have screamed. She climbed out of the car, heels clicking against the polished concrete of the Cedar Point Townhouse Complex parking area in Atlanta, Georgia. The evening air was warm and golden, the kind that makes everything feel cinematic. She pulled out her phone to call Uncle Raymond with the news. That's when she heard the tires. 2 police cruisers swung into the parking complex so fast their headlights swept across her like searchlights hunting an escaped prisoner. Doors flew open before the cars even fully stopped. You... Don't move. Hands where I can see them. Officer Briggs was already moving toward her, his jaw set, his hand raised. Behind him, Officer Calloway followed with the careful, measured steps of someone who had done this before and stopped asking questions about it a long time ago. What is... Amora started. I said don't move. Briggs barked, closing the distance between them in seconds. Step away from a vehicle. This is my vehicle, Amora said, her voice steady even as her heart slammed against her ribs. I own this car. My name is on the registration. Briggs grabbed her arm and spun her around before she could finish the sentence. The phone flew from her hand and cracked against the concrete. The sound of her uncle's voice calling out Amora, "Baby, you there?" echoed faintly from a broken screen as Briggs pressed her firmly against the side of her own car, the car she had saved for, planned for, and paid for in full 14 months ago. The ceramic coating she had polished herself was now pressed against her cheek. This vehicle was reported stolen, Briggs said into her ear. You want to explain what you're doing with it. It wasn't stolen, she said through gritted teeth. Because it's mine. The registration is in the glove box. My ID matches this address. I have the... Save it. Across the parking lot, Amora caught a glimpse of Diane Fowler, her neighbor from Unit 14, standing with her arms folded across her chest, watching, not with concern, with satisfaction, the same woman who had once asked Amora if she was the new cleaning service. The same woman who had filed 3 noise complaints in 1 month, all dismissed. Now she stood beside Officer Briggs's cruiser like she had personally arranged the whole scene. Because she had. Amora didn't know that yet. Calloway moved to the passenger side, retrieved the registration from the glove box, checked it against the VIN, and turned to Briggs with a document in his hand. It matches, he said quietly. Cars has. Briggs didn't even blink. Could be forged. Cuff her. We'll verify at the station. The handcuffs were cold and tight. Each click felt like a door slamming shut on everything she had built. What happened next is where everything explodes. Amora Mitchell was placed in the back of that patrol car with her hands bound behind her, parked in her own spot, in front of her own home, beside her own car. And somewhere above her, something neither Briggs, Calloway, nor Diane Fowler knew about was already recording every single second. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and indifference. Amora sat on a cold metal bench inside the booking area, her wrists still raw from the handcuffs. Officers walked past her like she was furniture. Nobody made eye contact. Nobody apologized. A bored desk clerk typed her information into a computer, without once looking up at her face, as if processing a young woman who had just been ripped from her own parking spot was simply another Tuesday evening in Atlanta. Name: Amora Mitchell. Age: 21. Address: the same address on the registration your officers ignored. The clerk paused, finally looked up, then looked back down and kept typing. Across the room, 2 officers huddled around a phone, laughing. One of them glanced at Amora and said something low to the other. The second one smirked. She forced herself to breathe slowly, the way her mother had taught her. Don't let them see the fire. Baby, make them wonder why you're so calm. That silence will scare them more than any scream. Her phone had been confiscated. She couldn't call Uncle Raymond. She couldn't call anyone. What she didn't know was that while she sat in that cell staring at fluorescent lights that never dimmed, the world outside was catching fire. Her car's built-in dashcam had a feature she had activated months ago and nearly forgotten: automatic cloud sync. Every second of footage from the parking lot had already uploaded silently to her account. But there was something else on that footage. Something nobody had planned for. Something that would eventually burn the entire cover story to the ground. But that moment hadn't arrived yet. First came the collapse. By midnight, 3 clients had sent cancellation emails. By morning, 2 more followed. The luxury authentication forum where Amara had spent years building her reputation was flooded with comments from strangers who had seen the arrest video. A shaky clip filmed by a passerby that made her look combative, made Briggs look restrained, and told exactly none of the truth. How does a 21-year-old afford that car? One comment read, sketchy. Another said, no smoke without fire. The bank called Uncle Raymond since Amara was unreachable. The business expansion loan was frozen pending review of reputational risk factors. The office space she had dreamed about for 3 years was already being shown other tenants by afternoon. Officer Briggs filed his report with theatrical confidence. Subject was immediately hostile, made aggressive movements, refused lawful commands, required physical restraint for officer safety. Every sentence was a lie dressed in official language, wearing a badge. Then journalist Damon Cole knocked on Uncle Raymond's door. He was young, sharp-eyed, and carrying a folder thick enough to suggest he hadn't slept in days. He spread documents across the kitchen table: complaint records, incident reports, patrol logs. A pattern so clear it was almost architectural. Officer Briggs had done this before. 7 times in 18 months. Always upscale areas. Always people of color who legally belonged there. Always the same language in the reports. Always the same outcome. Complaints buried, records sealed, victims silenced by quick settlements and non-disclosure agreements. He picks people he thinks won't fight back, Damon said quietly. When Amara was released that evening, no apology, no explanation, just a plastic bag containing her cracked phone and her keys. She sat in Uncle Raymond's kitchen, read every document Damon had brought, and made one phone call. Vivian Cross answered on the second ring. Vivian was the kind of attorney whose reputation made police departments nervous just hearing her name. She listened to everything without interrupting. When Amara finished, there were 3 seconds of silence. We're filing for $10 million, Vivian said. Not because of the money, because anything less lets them call it a misunderstanding. Amara exhaled for what felt like the first time in 24 hours. Do it. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. People are reading this from Lagos to London, Houston to Johannesburg, and we love seeing you all. Subscribe right now so you never miss a story like this. And here's your question. Can you guess what's on that dashcam footage that nobody knew was recording? Drop your predictions in the comments. The truth had been sitting in the cloud the entire time, waiting. It was Uncle Raymond who found it. He had been searching through Amora's dashcam app at 5:47 in the morning, bleary-eyed and desperate, when the full unedited footage loaded on his screen. He watched it once. Then he called Amora. Then he called Vivian. Then he sat very still in his kitchen chair, because what he had just watched wasn't simply evidence of a wrongful arrest. It was a confession. The dashcam's wide-angle lens had captured something no one had anticipated. Before Briggs ever approached Amora, before the cruisers even stopped fully, Diane Fowler had walked directly to Briggs's window. The audio was startlingly clean. Her voice came through without distortion, sharp and deliberate like someone who had rehearsed. That's her. The one I called about. She doesn't belong here driving something like that. You understand what I'm saying? She needs to be dealt with. Briggs had nodded slowly. We'll handle it. He had then looked directly at Amora's car, leaned forward to read the registration card visible through the passenger window, straightened up, and walked toward her anyway. He had seen the proof before he ever opened his mouth. He had known the entire time. Vivian cross-watched the footage 4 times in a row without speaking. When she finally looked up, her expression was something between fury and fierce satisfaction. "They handed us everything," she said simply. "Get dressed. We have work to do." The deposition room was small and airless. Officer Calloway arrived with his union attorney, composed and guarded. That composure lasted exactly 11 minutes, the length of the dashcam footage Vivian played on her laptop without introduction or warning. Calloway watched himself on screen, watched Diane Fowler, watched Briggs nod, watched the moment he had confirmed the registration matched, and Briggs had said cuff her anyway with the casual ease of someone ordering lunch. His attorney requested a break. They returned 20 minutes later, and Calloway looked like a different person. What followed was a kind of testimony that ends careers and opens investigations. He described Briggs's pattern in quiet, devastating detail. The targeted patrols, the manufactured reports, the unspoken rule that partners protected each other regardless of what they witnessed. He confirmed that 3 previous complaints against Briggs had been quietly redirected by a senior officer with close union ties. "Did you know arresting Ms. Mitchell was wrong?" Vivian asked. Calloway stared at the table. "Yes." "Did you stop it?" A long silence. "No." The courtroom was packed the morning of the hearing. Cameras lined the back wall. Community members filled every bench. Uncle Raymond sat in the front row holding a photograph of Amora's late mother, Clara Mitchell, a woman whose entrepreneurial spirit had lit the fire that nobody had been able to extinguish. The dashcam footage played on the courtroom screen in complete silence. When Diane Fowler's voice filled the room, she buried her face in her hands. When Briggs's nod appeared on screen, a murmur rolled through the gallery like a wave. The judge didn't deliberate long. Briggs and Calloway were terminated, pending criminal charges for filing false official reports and civil rights violations. The city, unwilling to let the evidence continue destroying them publicly, accepted Amora's full terms before the afternoon session. $10 million. A full public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Mandatory department-wide reform of stop and detention procedures. Amora stood on the courthouse steps in the Atlanta sun and said nothing for a moment. She just breathed. Then she smiled, not the careful, controlled smile she had worn through every brutal week of this fight. A real one. Her mother's smile. 6 months later, she opened the Mitchell Community Auto and Justice Hub on Cedar Point Boulevard. One side housed her thriving consulting business. The other side housed the Clara Mitchell Justice Fund, offering free legal support, document preparation, and advocacy training to anyone who needed it. At the ribbon cutting, Amora pressed play on a voice note saved on her phone. Her mother's voice filled the crowd. "Baby, you were built for more than surviving. You were built for changing things." Nobody said a word. Nobody needed to. If this story moved you, like it right now. It takes 1 second, and it means everything. Subscribe so you never miss what we post next. Tomorrow's story will leave you speechless. Drop your location in the comments. Where in the world are you reading this from? And tell us, did justice come soon enough? Let us know below.